But in the end, what should happen, if you remember that X and the simpler lifestyle, see, these categories should start to wear out. And in the end, this is what you should have. You should have a giving, taxes, and living expenses bucket. That's it. And here's a question. I got a question for you. This is kind of not a trick question, but how much the number? What is the idyllic number on your Schedule A for itemized deductions? And the answer is 0, because every deduction costs you something. If you want, add charitable deduction, because you see, in the end, what happens is you can maximize cash flow to maximize giving. And giving comes in many, many different facets. It is a solid stewardship core objective. Let me give you what I consider, which has been the culmination. This is just an illustration of which is the culmination of a process. A process. I'm not going to tell you it is the only process, but a process by which you can get to this point, this full potential vision. You can see on the front end your journey begins. Everybody's journey begins at the same time. If you're willing, you'll move on. A lot of people go through what we call that financial and family legacy roundabout. But there's always the intention to get you back on this path. That little whirlpool under the swing bridge there is the discovery side of things. This is when that circle that I have talked to you about, this is when you begin to get clarity on the things that matter most to you. And you start to get some things. And you need some help. You need find somebody to help you do that, because it's a difficult process, or it can be at times. Coaching is the financial and family legacy piece. Most people do need help getting that done, but it's getting over the hump. It's difficult to get over the hump, so you need some help to get over the hump. But then, if you do so, now you're on the generous living phase. The supervisory phase. You see, the individual, you begin to take over, and you begin to understand that, boy, I've got significant resources and experience and centers of influence and all these different things. How do I use those for kingdom-minded work from a stewardship perspective? The passion pursuit is the delegating phase in which you start to get that much more focused, and you start to channel into that area or areas that God has intended you ultimately get out to vision and full potential. And now you see the path is going to that little peak up there. That little guy on the top going, yeah, well, it's not just reaching the peak. But I did that purposefully to illustrate that some people, Bill Bright, you know that name from Campus Crusade, Francis Schaeffer, who is not with us anymore either. Some of these guys back, I think as far in the 70s, have identified what they thought were the 7 peaks of our culture. There may be more, but these 7 would be religion, family, education, media, government and politics. How about arts, entertainment, and sports, and business, finance, and technology? Some would say medicine, some might say military. Fine, I don't care if you want to put more in there. The point is that there are peaks of our culture that are not influenced very strongly by Christians. And that's what he intends for us to do. Look what Philippians 2:12 says, 12 to 15. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure children of God without fault in a crooked and depraved generation in which you shine like stars in the universe. I would submit to you again that I don't believe that there's a better time in our lifetime for us to be able to have the influence. People are desperate for some answers, for some truth. Daniel 12:3 says, those who are wise will shine like the brightness in the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. This is the practical process that gets you over the hump. Somebody said to me that all vision eventually degenerates to work. So it's going to take a little work to get there. That's why this is a BHAG. That's why this is a big, hairy, audacious goal. But if you can kind of imagine if even 1/2 to 1% of evangelical Christians, just believers, just people who want to, just to impact people with the love of Jesus Christ. I don't care how you do it. If we were in the spheres of influence that God intended, what kind of impact that would have on culture? Rick Warren says Rick Warren says that now he's passed his purpose-driven life thing, and they've done some research. They said if 5% of any community would give 15 hours of community service a year, it would transform that community. Now, if you look at Lancaster County, you look at 500,000 people, 5% is 10,000 people. Now, here's an interesting point. In Lancaster County, we are very high on the national scale, but we're 25% churched. That's defined as people who go to church 2 or more times a month. But that's not even talking about the other people. We're 25% church, so that's 125,000 people. Now also, we know that Barna says to us that 17% of people want to serve outside the church. It may be short-term missions, it may be something. But now interpolate that back in, 17% of the 125 is 21,250 people. That's already more than double what Rick Warren says, that just 15 hours of service of some impact in this community could transform it. And that's a tiny step about getting into the spheres of influence that he intends. I gave you these passages in Philippians and in Daniel. Now, let me give you just a couple more things, and then we'll be done. This is the third time this has come back. God owns it all. He's got a plan and a purpose, and everything is in his power. If A and B represents the standard of living by which we wanted to live, and that's part of what your financial and estate planning is going to all encompass. This is a big part of it. The reality of it is that it has gotten squeezed. The reduced resources has caused a refocus on the heart issues. I believe that that is the single most beneficial result of what has happened in this economic downturn and the crisis. It doesn't have to be a crisis. That's why I parenthesize it. It could be a positive opportunity. Because you see, even this refocus thing here, you see what this part right there represents, even from a financial perspective, your budget. You see, that's what that should be. So when things do get squeezed, you easily could come back to a budget, say, I can handle the standard of living that I had. These were the other areas. But you know something? The heart issues are more important. And when you combine that with these principles of life stewardship that we have just talked about, that is sustainable, purposeful living. And that is a message of hope. Because even the people who are looking for the purpose-driven life, they don't want to just have some one thing hit them. They want it to be sustainable. That's what this is. The heart issues combined with principles of life stewardship is a sustainable. I'm going to go through this, and I'm not going to spend the time, but there are multiple things that you could, I'm just going to go back. The multiple things that you should expect if you're committed to a life with life steward principles bearing it. We've got this. I know I just went through those rather quickly, but I'm doing it for the sake of time. These are the types of things that you can expect. Now, the last practical piece that I'm going to give you here. You got to get started someplace. I know we talked about the scriptural principles. I know we talked conceptually what it means. We've given some practical application because the process is a way by which you can practically get your hands on it. It's not just talking about just find out what God's plan and purpose for your life is. There is a way in which you can do it. God always provides a way. But how do we really get started? How might be some of the issues, or how might be some of the ways in which you can do this? These couple of books here, these are just a couple that are very good for me. Intimacy with the Almighty had to do with something that Charles Swindoll wrote, and it's really powerful about just getting back to the simplicity of life. Just a very small book. A stewardship self-evaluation and the most important heart issues. What I would suggest that you do, and this is really a fundamental thing that we do for people who are willing on the front end to say, I'll do what it takes to get clarity on the things that are most important. Just take an opportunity where there is no distractions, a Saturday afternoon or something. Do it with yourself, do it with your spouse, whatever it may be, and just throw out on the table all the things that matter to you. Don't only limit them to the financial. Put the financial issues in there. Put the relational issues in it. In fact, take that circle. I will make sure, Ryan, I'll get you that. If people want that, I'll make sure that you get that circle that I have. But those 6 and 7 areas, really, basically, look at those. and say, every one of these areas, maybe there's something that really has, I'm a little out of balance in some of those areas. Identify those and begin, after you've thrown all those things down, sift through to find the most important ones. And start to begin and work on that there. And if you need some help, this is great. We've heard this over and over and over again. Some of us embrace this, some of us resist it. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. This is a great, powerful passage because this is the only place in the New Testament that spur is used in a positive context. It means to kind of irritate you, to really get you kind of motivated in some ways. But it is a positive way to do it. Here's another way in which you can get involved. Just connect. Connect in your community. Some of you know that I'm involved with it's a ministry, servelancaster.com. It is nothing more. Some of you may be familiar with something called the Finishers Project. It's just simply connecting people with volunteer opportunities in this community. It's not only faith-based, but it is also civic or community-minded. That's one way. If you are inclined to want to serve in your community, it's not quite there yet, but the objective is that in 5 minutes or less, you will find a volunteer opportunity in this community somewhere that will fit what is, itching you at that particular point in time.